Hello and welcome to the first ever Calmer Schools webinar series focused on mental health essentials for educators. I'm your host, Dr. Meredith McNerney, and I have with me today our moderator for the series, Jen Perry. We're both so excited to talk about mental health essentials for educators. And I have a special treat for you today because our first episode is actually going to feature Jen. Jen Perry is an educator and coach. She's been serving public schools for many years, 25 plus years, in a variety of roles. She was a teacher, an administrator, principal. She also, as many of you know, the importance of this role, she was the person in her district who would determine if school was in or out on a snow day. So she's done a lot with transportation as well, but a particular background in HR and employee engagement, employee retention, and now does some incredible work working directly with principals to help them with work-life balance, also helping them to set goals for their school improvement plans. And so she's a great coach, not only to educators, but to principals. And today she's going to be talking to us about teaching and leading from a place of balance. And we're going to talk about strategies for educator wellness. So welcome, Jen. I'm so excited to kick off the series with you today.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me today.
Oh, well, hey, Jen, we've known each other a long time, and I've known you in a variety of roles, and you've been someone that's always been a servant leader and thinking about others. So I think it's wonderful to be able to start our series with you. I know as someone who is trained as a coach, you've done a lot to help me as well. So I know you're going to help our audience think about things from a different perspective because let's face it, we're all a little stressed out. We could use a little more calm in our lives, right?
Yes, definitely. Definitely.
Oh, well, hey, I kind of wanted to start, just to tap into what got you into this work, what drew you to become a coach after so many different roles and helping out in public education in a variety of ways. What led you into coaching and how does that help you to meet some of the unique challenges facing educators?
Well, thank you. And thank you so much for having me. I'm so honored to be the first guest of this series. So, great question. So, years ago, back in the 90s, when I started my career, I was a second grade teacher. And I was one of those teachers that just wanted to do it all. I was
Mm,
eager to learn. I wanted to serve on so many committees, a grade level lead. Always at home trying to figure out what I could do that would just be the best of the best for my students the next day. And after a few years, I started feeling tired. I was still young and I was tired. And I'm thinking, why am I tired? This is exciting work. This is what I've been working for my whole life. And I realized that my habits had changed. And so
mm,
I was doing more work for work and less work for me. So I had
mhm.
stopped exercising regularly. When I was reading, I was always reading the big teacher manuals,
Yeah.
getting ready for the next week. And so I started reflecting on that and tried to get back into my habits, of my healthy
Mhm.
habits of taking care of myself. And I realized how powerful that was
Mm,
and how much I wanted to spread that knowledge. And so my career path took me to places where I could do that more. I became a school counselor where I could help so many students and so many even teachers. The teachers definitely need the counsel.
yeah.
And then I became a principal where I was able to spread that even more. And then as an HR director, even more. In all of these roles, there's so many great things I learned, but throughout all of these roles, I always focused on how to support the individual,
Mhm.
not the role that they were serving, but who they were as a person. And as we were all going through the pandemic and trying to come back from that, and the needs that we
Mhm.
all have at this point, just to make sure that we prioritize ourselves. That's where I find where my bucket gets filled, right? Is
Mhm.
just seeing how I'm able to help others prioritize themselves and then help them see how much better they perform and how much better they feel
Mhm.
in life, at work, at home, and everywhere. So it's good work. It's needed work right now in
Yeah.
2025 with things being as crazy and as hectic as they are. But yeah, so that's my journey to where we are today.
Oh, I do love that. And I think it does speak volumes to in every role, you thinking about the individual on the other side and how do you really help them. And I guess, as we talk about what's facing educators right now, what are some of the unique challenges that you think are maybe even causing people to leave or causing them to think about leaving or having, more stress than maybe in the past in the profession?
Yeah, so I think anyone that's been in education for longer than a month realizes that the demands it's a demanding job to be a teacher, to be a building leader, to be in central office, anywhere in the education sector. It's a lot. It's a lot right now. And what I find when working with individuals is the struggle is the balance, when to turn work off and when to turn your life on. We're at work majority of our waking hours,
Mhm.
and the time that we have at home with our loved ones is very limited. And so what I find is if when we're able to really look at that time from the time we leave work to the time we go to sleep each night, what we're doing with that time, if we can focus that time on ourselves and our families as much as possible. I know it's not always possible to do the whole time, but just making sure we prioritize ourselves and our loved ones during that time, that's where we see the biggest return. And that's where individuals feel that they're able to continue because they feel more balance in their lives.
Yeah, and I mean, I love that. But it's something I struggled with because I would leave the building and bring the building with me, right? And so I think just finding that balance, and I had to change some habits. I was checking my email a lot. To me, it's almost like saying, it's okay. I don't need to have boundaries, and a lot of it was me, to be honest with that, just that guilt, I guess, of I wanted so badly to meet all the expectations and I don't know, just I guess it became a habit, I guess, of how I was turning on or turning off work when I got home. So I appreciate what you're saying. It's a choice that we have to make to decide that boundary. And, I guess the reason why we don't do that sometimes is because there are so many demands on us. I mean, it's like, how will I meet all of the demands and not burn out? I guess I would just want to know your advice on that for those of us that want to meet those demands. We want to be good at our jobs, but we don't
Yeah.
want to burn out.
No, no, and you're going to be better at your job if you're not feeling burned out, right? And I think you hit the nail on the head when you said it's a habit. We're in the habit of we always have our phone with us, right? So
Yes.
it's ping, 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 emails, texts coming in, right? And so most of us have a habit of we hear it, we check it, or we see it, we check it. So a lot of the work around prioritizing yourself does revolve around habits and how to truly intentionally reprogram yourself in your
Mhm.
routine, right? And definitely prioritizing that. There's lots of studies out there, lots of information out there about all the things you can do to take care of yourself. But the one thing that we feel like is super important, it's almost like the root and the base, is looking at your sleep.
Ah,
So
yes. Oh my
yeah,
gosh.
right. So if you think about a car, right? A car runs on gasoline. Most of them do, not the electric ones. But think about a car that needs gasoline to run. And as you run out, you can't function, right? So think about our bodies. If we don't have that fuel, which is
Mhm.
sleep, we're not able to function to the best of our ability, the way that we're designed. The benefits of sleep, just I could go on for hours about the benefit of sleep, but really prioritizing how to find time to sleep and how to find time to prepare for sleep. And that's something that a lot of people don't do.
Mhm.
A lot of listeners probably have their phones with them by the bed. I know when I was director of transportation, I had to have it there because at 4:30 in the morning, there might be an emergency, right? And it was right there. But thinking about that time before we go to sleep
Mhm.
and having a instead of a power hour, like some people do when they're doing plannings and different things at school, doing a power down hour.
Yeah.
So thinking about our behaviors before we go to sleep, thinking about what time you want to go to sleep, and think about your behaviors that hour before. Can we reduce some screen time? Can we do some things that will slow our bodies down? Some people like to drink some warm tea. Some people like to take a nice warm bath or a shower or something like that, just to prep and prime your body for
Mhm.
rest. A lot of people like to journal and reflect on the day. That's when one thing that I do, I have a very small little calendar by the bed, and I just write down three things that I'm grateful for that
Mhm.
day. And
Powerful.
just it just kind of leaves it right there. It could be big, can be small, but just we've had this
Yes.
day, and so that way, when you do finally lay down to sleep, your body has been primed for that.
Mhm.
So the quality of sleep you get hopefully will improve and increase, and then you're ready to attack the day the next day. So that is where we find a huge benefit if we can just really focus on our sleep,
Mhm.
the immediate reward. I mean, the next day you're ready to tackle the day.
Yeah, I mean, it's so true because I'm someone that absolutely cannot function without sleep. I mean, I'm married to a teacher who can do that for a night, maybe. So if he has a bad sleep, it's fine one night. But just like any other human, it builds up for him. For me, I mean, even one rough night of sleep, and I notice a lot of it has to do with my habits. If I'm drinking caffeine late in the night, and just not realizing, but sort of out of habit to go grab a Diet Coke, whatever. But I really like that you said just some of those intentional routines, having that journal by the bed, saying I'm going to power down hour, power, powering down in my own intentional way to get off the
Mhm.
phone. Oh my
Yes.
gosh, like for me at least that's a big part of it. Would you say you struggle with that or
I did definitely in some of the roles that I had previously. And I think that's where I really started to reflect on, is this feeling balanced to me?
okay.
And when it stopped feeling balanced, I would set the notifications on my phone to turn off at a certain time.
Mhm.
So if there was something going on and I needed to check it, I would, but it wasn't talking to me constantly, ping, ping, ping.
Yes.
So I definitely think, yes, it is hard. I think it's a struggle for anyone. I mean, honestly, because I mean, right now I have to sleep with it by the bed because I have teenagers that aren't in the house with me anymore. So I need
Sure.
to be available, right? If something happens, but I have it set to sleep. So the only thing that can come through when I'm powering down, the only calls that can come through are from my children, my husband, and my parents. Like only
Yes.
emergencies are going to come through at
Me
that
too.
point. So just what is it that you need, right? So I need those individuals to be able to get in touch with me so that I have them coming through. But everything else, I don't need them coming to me. If I want to go and see what's going on out there in my email world, I will. But
Mhm.
I don't need it coming to me and feeding me while I'm powering down and while I'm trying to sleep. But yeah, I mean, it's a struggle. It's a struggle because most educators are doing everything that we can in our power to be the best that we can be for our kids and for our staff.
Yeah.
And to do that, it's hard to do that between 7 and 5 or 8 and 4, whatever your hours
Right.
are.
Right.
And some people nighttime is their creative time. There
Sure.
are some people that that's their time when they create presentations for their faculties or they whatever. And some people 5 a.m. Right. So you just have to figure out what works best for you, but
Mhm.
being intentional during that time. And if an hour sounds crazy, do a power down 15 minutes to start,
Right. Right.
right? Do a power
Yeah.
down 30 minutes, but just see how that feels and see what benefit that brings. But every little intentional habit that we can tweak to be more about us and more about our well-being and self-care,
Mhm.
we're going to feel the benefits of it for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I can't agree more because it's sleep is everything. And I think
Yeah.
to me, it's not just sleep. I mean, yes, sleeping, but also just the physical mindset or the mindset that I have physical rest, which is my sleeping, but also I have I might have my spiritual rest time. I might have my emotional rest time. Like there's time to rest in our day because we don't do that well. We don't rest at times during the day. So it makes it harder to sleep, I think, because we're just not used to resting, you know?
Yes.
And I
Yes.
wonder if other listeners are like me, where some of that comes from this strange guilt that, I think I've gotten better at, but I used to really carry, especially when I was a principal. I would feel guilty for powering down, even though I knew that I needed it. And I guess I'm just wondering, how do you help people who do feel guilty putting themselves first? I know I've had to work on that a lot. And I think I'm doing a better job because I understand the benefits, but how would you coach someone who's struggling with some guilt?
Yeah, and I would say yes, you were doing a great job with it, Meredith, from what I know. I think you have a great from the outside looking in, it looks like you have a great balance and you always seem like you have the energy that you're needed. So
Right.
you definitely present as someone
Oh,
that
thanks.
is definitely taking care of themselves. So kudos to you. I would say if someone was feeling guilty about taking care of themselves and taking time for themselves, I would just come to them with a question.
Mm,
If you're not going to take care of yourself, who will?
mhm, mhm,
Chances are you probably don't have an answer to that.
mhm,
Right?
mhm,
So if they're feeling guilty, I would want to really dig into that and figure out where's that guilt coming from?
mhm,
Why do you feel guilty? Why do you
mhm,
feel like you're not worth the time? Why do you feel like you don't deserve a few minutes to
mhm,
reflect or to sit or
mhm.
just to sit, right? Like you
Yes.
said, in a school, I mean, you're go, 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 right? And every minute counts. But you know, you deserve that. So
Mhm.
I think it would need to go deeper than no, you really just need to take care of yourself. Would need to go to where's the guilt coming from
Yeah.
and address that guilt, but also, we hear all the time, oh, you need to do all of this with your exercise routine and you need to do all of this with your diet. And sometimes the self care just feels like it's not attainable. It
Mm,
might feel like it's too much, right?
right. Good
And
point. Yeah.
helping that person that feels guilty realize you don't have to change your whole day to take care
Mhm,
of yourself, right? It's
mhm.
very attainable to just pick one thing that's your area that you feel like you need to focus on. And that's something that we are going to share with the listeners. There's a little presentation that we're going to share, a little resource we're going to share where there are just these resiliency strategies. And there's
Mm.
lots of them, there's like 9 of them, but we can't address all of them and we may not need to address all of them, right? So, what is the one area that that person would need to focus on? And then
Ah,
picking one tiny behavior to
mhm,
tweak. We're not, don't say the word change sometimes, right? Because people don't like change. So, one little area to tweak, or instead of saying exercise, what's one way you could just move your body? How can you just
mhm.
move your body, right? So sometimes exercise has a negative connotation, you know? So we're not going to diet, but what are some choices we can make around food to make us feel better? So whatever the person feels is their area of focus, making it feel manageable
Mhm,
and attainable so that they can at least start with one step
mhm.
and then go from there. But that would be where I would start is if not you, who else?
Right. And the root of the guilt. I like
Yes,
that a lot because
yes.
I have an amazing mom, but she was, businesswoman who ran her own dance studios, an amazing mom, very, very busy, never sat down. I mean, I never saw her relax. I really didn't. So just developing my own habits for relaxation sort of felt like, oh, a working mom can't do that because we have so much to do all the time. And it really, I mean, no offense to her, she's amazing, but it wasn't modeled for me. And
Right.
so I think about that too with my own daughters. I want to model for them what it means to really rest and take care of myself and not
Mhm.
have guilt about it,
Yeah.
and I think the other thing too is knowing that that ebbs and flows. So some nights as a working mom, I would set out to say, this is a night that I'm going to give myself an hour. And then something happened at school and Caitlin came home and she needed me. And that hour did not happen for me.
Mhm.
And to be flexible, but then to say, okay, I'm going to reschedule, just like you would reschedule a doctor's appointment. I'm going to reschedule my me time because yeah, as busy working professionals with a lot of competing interests, we may have times that we have to flex, but not to then say I'm going to give up and stop taking care of myself.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And I think, when you're feeling that you are in control and you feel like you have balance in your life, you're able to respond to your daughter's needs in a more calm manner. You're
Mhm.
able to make decisions at work in a more rational manner, right? So the benefits you would see at home, you would see at work, you would see in your relationships with your significant other, you would see in your interactions with colleagues, right? So, one small tweak to your
Mhm,
self-care routine
mhm.
truly could you could see the benefits, but then it might spark, I need more of that, right? So then you might expand on that. But yes, I do feel like we need to just get everyone started somewhere because your daughters are seeing you model it. But think about when you're a leader in a building, your staff, you modeled that, right?
True.
You were modeling that for them, and teachers, when you're taking care of yourself, there might be behaviors that you do in your classroom and you're modeling it for your students when you drink water throughout the day, or have some good healthy food choices at lunch when you're sitting at the lunch table with them. So as educators and as parents and as adults, we're people are watching us all the time. And so while we're taking care of ourselves, we're also modeling those behaviors for others that are important to us. So I think that's important to remember.
Yeah, and can we agree that just some days just aren't great day? Like some days are just crappy. And like
Yes.
some days I just have crappy days
Yeah.
and I'm not in balance and my strategies don't work and whatever. And I think I've normalized that for myself a little bit more, which I think comes down to self-compassion, which probably helps me to just overall feel better, just to say, you know what, today just kind of sucked. Like
Yep,
and it
absolutely, and guess what? We can start over tomorrow. Yep,
exactly, exactly.
yep, and
Yeah.
every decision we make is a step, right? So if we did something today and we try something again next week, like, something will stick, right?
Right.
But yes, we are all human, and we
Yeah.
have to remember that we are gonna have goals, and we're gonna have all these things that we say that we're gonna do, and the reality is life's gonna happen
Mhm.
sometimes, and we're gonna go home, and we're just gonna, like, go to sleep, or we're gonna have a glass of wine, or we're gonna do
Yeah.
whatever, and not take
Yes.
care of ourselves. But you know what? Sometimes that rest and that pause
Mhm.
is your self-care.
Yes. Yeah.
Sometimes
And being
that's what we
kind.
need.
Yeah,
Yeah,
being
be
kind to
kind to
yourself
yourself.
on those days. Like it all
Yeah,
fell apart today. Okay. So okay,
absolutely.
that's great. And I guess, in your work, you do a lot of coaching of principals and district leaders, a lot of organizational type of coaching as well. So I'm curious, what do you say to school leaders? How do you guide them so that they can support their staff?
I think just realizing whether you're leading a division, whether you're a leader in the school, I really feel like if you can just remember that everyone that you work with, whether it's the custodian, the coaches, the teachers, the everyone, they're all human and they're
Mm,
all coming to work with life, right? So just seeing and hearing your people that you lead,
mhm,
um, having them feel seen and
mhm,
heard and
mhm.
welcomed when they're there, respecting them, respecting when they have to take time to care for family,
Mhm.
respecting their time. So it's interesting. I've worked with lots of different leaders, right? And under lots of different leaders. And I've worked with leaders that um, you would get emails and phone calls anytime, right? If it was something that came up, you got an email or a phone call. And I've worked with leaders where if something comes up in their mind at 2 a.m., they create the email and they schedule send for 8 a.m. Right.
Mhm.
So they're respecting that time. Right. So it's just everyone's different, but any way that we can send a message to our people that we respect you, we hear you, we want you to feel balanced. I mean, even little things that you can do in faculty meetings. When I was a principal, we did something every month, just something every
Mhm.
month to recognize that we are all working really, really
Yeah.
hard. We are all bringing our A game every single day,
Mhm.
but doing activities to strengthen that A game, right? And doing things to help us feel balanced and to help us feel heard and welcome and having that sense of community within
Mhm.
the faculty and within whether it's district teams or, grade level teams, whatever it is, just giving them opportunities and having them understand that I understand you're human, but we're going to do things to build and support each other here at
Mhm.
school and knowing that we're bringing our life with us and just seeing your people I think is so important.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, you end up creating a culture where people want to work for you. They want to rise up. And The downside of that, I will say though, is there were times that I felt like, but who's looking out for me? So and so is burning me out or whatever. They're not respecting me. And here I'm giving and giving. But I think I would try to go back to that idea of servant leadership. And I know I've seen that from you over and over again. And surrounding myself with other servant leaders, because leaders, by the way, can get in circles where it's like, and my staff, da 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 da, and mama, and like you can get really negative because let's face it, there are people that will bring you down if you allow them, So
Yes.
um, just surrounding myself with other leaders that had that servant leadership mindset, not to say we didn't vent sometimes or get upset, but to just not take that out on the rest of the staff.
Right. Right. And I think that's the human part in us, right?
Yeah.
So if you're in a role where you are under a lot of stress and are under a lot of demands and you have the never ending to do list, right? So when you get with colleagues that are like minded, that you feel it's safe, then of course you're going to vent. Of course. And
Yeah.
that's, I did that, not too long ago. I had a meeting with some colleagues and it was a 2 hour meeting. And the first 20 minutes or so, we just had to get some things off our chest. But then we were so productive for the rest of the time, right? That's human. That's what we do. And I feel like recognizing that and giving ourselves permission to do that when you're in a safe space, absolutely. But definitely, like you said, Meredith, just being intentional and being
Mhm.
cognizant of the people that we're surrounding ourselves with. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, because our staff feeds off of our energy. So for those of us that are leaders, they feel that. And,
Mhm.
I would just always try to remember to smile, to watch my face and make sure I was smiling, even if I didn't feel it, because that energy was ultimately pinging to other
Mhm.
educators who are bouncing that over to kids. So
Mhm.
I
Yeah.
appreciate the conversation of just how important it is for the leader to think about caring for their staff, but also having their own opportunities to care for themselves. Okay, so what is one actionable strategy, tip, takeaway? What's your biggest recommendation, I guess, as we move forward?
Just one? Okay, just
I
one. Let's see.
know.
So besides the sleep part that we talked about earlier, because I do think that's huge for majority of us. But if I would have to pick one thing, I would have to just have everyone find a small piece of time
Mhm.
and just do what you want to do. It's you time. It can be 10 minutes, it can be 30 minutes, it can be once a week, it could be 4 times a week, whatever feels manageable. Put it on your calendar, whatever you need to do. But what is it that you would want to do during that time? Do you need to just sit in a chair on your sunroom? Do you need to go for a walk? Do you need to read a book that's not a teacher's manual? Like whatever it is that you feel like would rejuvenate you,
Mhm.
prioritize it. Like I said, make it manageable. One time, preferably 30 minutes, but if you can only squeeze 15 or 15 here, 15 later, fantastic. Just prioritize yourself, but don't just do that. After you do it, how do you feel?
Mm.
Right? So like I just did something that I've been putting off for days or weeks, right? Something that I read, I don't know, I read a book, I read a magazine that had nothing to do with education or and I really enjoyed that, right? Just
Yeah.
how do you feel? And then maybe a day later, are you still feeling the benefits from that me time, right?
Mhm.
And then do I need to do it again? Can I do it again? Can I do it again? Can I add 5 minutes? Can I do it twice a week? Like just whatever feels manageable, but start with something for you would be the biggest takeaway.
I do really love that. And I've noticed in doing that for myself, I need a lot of alone time and I need it frequently. But I am, more open to that part of myself. I used to be like, what is wrong with you? Like, why do you? But now I know it's rest and it's recovery and it helps me to be better for others. So I'm, a lot more comfortable with it. But it has to be scheduled for me or it doesn't happen because I'm, like a lot of people go, go, go. So I like the idea of scheduling it and building up more of it as you need it and figuring out what it is exactly. I know you also, I've heard you talk a lot about the little things that we do throughout the day to kind of keep us going. So love my Diet Coke. And I love my M&Ms, peanut preferably. But, can you talk a little bit about that too? Because while we don't want to shame anyone, I'm not going to give up my Diet Coke and I'm not going to give up my peanut M&Ms. Let me tell you that. And those are things that got me through my day sometimes. I also made some switches, if you will, to what I was eating and how I was fueling myself about 5 years ago. And I feel like I do feel better emotionally. So I just wanted to pick your brain on that. How do you balance? Like, I don't want to make people feel guilty, but at the same time, what's going on with our health when we're
Yeah,
fueling?
absolutely. So, a lot of us are regularly on like a blood sugar roller coaster, right?
Mm,
So
good point.
think about a hectic morning and all you did was have a cup of coffee
Mhm.
with some French vanilla creamer in it because it was really good, right? So all you put in your body was caffeine, sugar, right? But it got you going. So you're going, right? Well, then that runs out and then you crash.
Mhm.
And what happens when you crash? You need more. So mid morning, you might get another cup of coffee, you might grab a donut from the work area or whatever, right? And so it starts this, and then that afternoon, that's when you grab that Diet Coke, right? Because you've got, and so what's happening is you're not giving your body what it needs to stay level, right? So
Mhm.
you're not fueling your body with the right things. And so, whether it's unhealthy things or healthy things, your body is still releasing all of those feel good chemicals, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
So, some people are addicted to healthy things like exercise or vegetables or whatever. Other people are addicted to unhealthy behaviors like alcohol or drugs or whatever. Your body is still getting and releasing the same feel good
Mhm.
chemicals, right?
Mhm.
So we have to be intentional to make sure that we're giving our body the healthy things so that we don't drop and need that
Right.
sugar fix, right? We don't want to be doing this. We want to be even and giving our
Mhm.
bodies all of the for proteins and carbs and all the fats, all the things that we're supposed to have to stay level so we don't dip on the roller coaster and need that Diet Coke. Now, I'm a Diet Dr. Pepper person. I'm not going to give it up, but I've made changes too. And I only have one a
Mhm.
day if I have it.
Mhm.
Like I haven't even had one today. Um,
Mhm.
but I went from drinking them in college. Oh my gosh. My roommate Melanie and I, we drank Diet Cokes like it was water.
Yes.
And it was like because we were just constantly unhealthy things we were putting in our body as far as our diet. And so we were just needing that caffeine to bring us back. But putting healthy things in your body, you don't need it. You might do it because you want it, but
Right.
you don't need it because you're doing all of the things and giving your body all the things that it needs to stay
Mhm.
level and stay off that blood sugar roller coaster.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I agree because it can be such a cycle. And you get that little hit of dopamine. Like I love you know, opening the can of Diet Coke and I like, ooh, and I get like all excited. But I realize, exactly what you're saying. When I do that or that's a priority drink versus water being a priority drink, I feel totally different.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, I've noticed my moods and my emotions are much more regulated since making some changes, like I said. And I think it's just important to talk about. I never want to shame anyone because there are still days where I will come home and I'm like, I just want to go and stand in the pantry and eat chips. And you know what?
Mhm.
Guess what? I do. And that's fine. Or my M&Ms or whatever it is. But I think overall, the point is the habits overall. And are we using those things to fuel an escape? Or are we like saying, okay, it's one day and I'm going to tomorrow get back on track? Because it really does that brain body connection makes all the difference in the world. So thank you for talking about that. I know I've heard you talk
Absolutely.
about that in other places. So I
Yeah.
always like to bring that up. Well, Jen, oh my goodness, this is so much fun. I really enjoyed talking to you. Thank you. I feel so inspired. I'm craving some me time. So I'm going to make sure I do that immediately today. But I want to
Absolutely.
so much for being on. And also, I'm super excited to share with our audience that you will be the moderator of the next 7 sessions that we will have on the mental health essentials for educators. So I look forward to moderating these with you and talking to a variety of guests. We're going to have guests from all different backgrounds and topics related to mental health and providing us with lots of information. And so, would you mind just talking a little bit about what's coming up next? And I'll share a little bit about our app where everyone can access all of this good stuff. And let's share with our audience where we're headed.
Absolutely. So, yeah, so we are kicking off this series and we have 8 sessions scheduled. So, the first session or two will be all about the educator. So, we talked about self care today. We talked about how to have that work life balance today. Next session is going to be all about financial wellness. So, as
Mm.
educators, just how we are financially, habits that we have, how we can make sure that we are sharing healthy financial habits with others, with their families, with their youth for sure. And then we're going to transition to other hot topics in education, other challenges that a lot of educators are feeling in the classroom. Because, in all honesty, if you're taking care of yourself, that's great. But if you have these heavy challenges in your classroom and you aren't armed with toolkits to address them, then all that self-care could make it harder, right? So what we're going to do is focus on things like bullying and different ways that we can address things that are happening in the classroom to create that learner-centered, safe environment for our children. We're also going to look at when we have newcomers, when we have some families that are coming in that are new to our education system, and how to have them feel welcome and how to really address some of the trauma that they're bringing. Thinking about some of our readers and some of our students who really are experiencing trauma every day because they struggle so much with the academics that they're faced with all day long. So we have lots of great things coming up. We hope everyone continues to tune in and keep us coming to you and all of the webinars that we have. So I'm going to share the information about the app. So Meredith, do you want to share information
Yes.
about that?
We're really excited. If you go to the App Store and you search Calmer Schools, you'll see the Calmer Schools Network app, and this will allow you to download all of these webinars and all of the resources. As Jen said, her episode will be linked there in the app, along with resources for building resilience and resiliency strategies. We'll also make sure that you can access all of the webinars once you enroll in this free course. And then the course will stay in your app so you can listen in and access the webinars anytime. Calmer Schools also provides educators with the opportunity to take courses for recertification and salary advancement. So please check out our courses. Once you enroll in a course, it will automatically be uploaded in the app so you can learn on the go. So we hope to provide you with flexible ways of learning and engaging with mental health essentials from a variety of different topics and allowing you to access them easily, whether it's on the app or on our website. I want to thank everybody for coming. I want to thank you, Jen, for all of your insights today. I'm very excited about having you serve as the moderator for the next 7 sessions. And I, again, want to just thank the Calmer Schools Network community for listening in. We hope that everybody goes now to make a plan for their self-care and time to refuel. Thank you all. Thank you, Jen.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Bye.